something like this, a word problem. I know how much you guys love word problems, right? Bicycle wheel has a diameter of 84 centimeters. How far has the bicycle traveled if the wheel turns 250 times? Well, there's no picture here. So far we've always had pictures. But if you don't have a picture, then how can you fix that? Well, one way you can fix it is if you decide to draw a picture, right? I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to use the circle that the computer lets me draw. But you can draw a circle perfectly well. And in this case, you know that the circle you're dealing with is a bicycle wheel. So you could even draw in some spokes there, and these things are all diameters in this bicycle wheel, which on a real bicycle wheel, they would not be diameters. Those of you interested in bike mechanics, the spokes of a bicycle wheel are technically not radii, but we're going to ignore that for now. So we've got our bicycle wheel, and we know it has a diameter across here of 84 centimeters, right? So the diameter, if we're going to, let me draw it in here, the diameter here is 84 centimeters, like it says up here, right? So if the diameter is 84 centimeters, and I want to know how far it's gone, if the wheel turns 250 times, then that means, well, it's going to go as far as 250 circumferences. So let me just find the circumference of this and multiply it by 250, right? Okay, let me start by finding the circumference. Circumference of this is going to be, since I have the diameter here, I'm going to use this formula, pi times the diameter. And if circumference is pi times diameter, I got my formula all laid out here. Let me just put in the numbers that I know. The diameter is 84 centimeters. So I can say circumference equal to pi times 84 centimeters. Like that. Now it's time to get out the calculator. You say 84 times pi gives you your circumference. Now this is the number I'm going to write down, 263.89. But I'm going to leave this number in my calculator so that when I get my final answer, it's going to be exact. Okay, but for now, I want to show Mr. Parr that I've been doing my work. So I say, okay, circumference is 263.89 centimeters. Circumference is 263.89 centimeters. Great. Not the answer to the problem yet, but the right next step. So now if I want to know how far it's traveled if the wheel turns 250 times, that means the circumference of the wheel is going to be like laid out on the ground 250 times. So I take this circumference and I multiply it by 250. Okay, so I say, all right, I've got 263.89 centimeters. That times 250 equals total distance. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. So let's do that calculation now. Again, I still have this full number in here. I haven't erased all these decimal places. I multiply that by 250 to get my total distance, which is a much bigger number. Here I've got this answer, 65,973.4, and this is going to be rounded up to 5 centimeters, right? I could say 65,000, this is going to be tough to remember, 65,973 what was it, 4 or 5 centimeters? It's probably wrong. Let's have a little check. 65,973 okay, all right, so it was right. But if you think of it, this is actually the correct answer, and if you wanted to at this point, you could put a round circle around this. But if you're saying to yourself, well, practically speaking, real life, I would never say how far I'd travel. Like if I was biking to the store, I'd never say, well, I biked 65,000 centimeters. No, I'd turn it into some kind of unit that would be more useful. So I could say, well, maybe let me turn this into meters, which I can do by moving it over 2 decimal places. So this is the answer. Whoops, did I say times there? Sorry. Yeah, do that, and then divide by 100. 659.73 meters. So I could say that here. Say, or 659.73 meters. I could actually give that in kilometers too if I felt like it, but it would be less than a kilometer. So this is probably the best answer to have. And that's the one that I'm going to circle. But again, if you came up with 65,973.45 centimeters, that's a correct answer. So good for you. All right. Now, because what you'll see, the pattern that'll be going on in this unit is that you'll see a lot of having to do questions like this forward, sometimes with a word problem element, so maybe slightly more complicated. But then what you'll have to do is use the same formula you've been using so far and figure out how to use it backwards. And really, that's using all your algebra training from the previous units, because that's really what's very important to be able to do. You want to be able to use your algebra properly. And all that's going to involve is setting up the equation properly and solving for the variable, like you guys were doing so well in Unit 5. So here, I know that I'm asked to find the diameter and the radius of a circle whose circumference is 335 centimeters. All right, so let me set up the equation properly. I know that I've got the circumference, and I'm asked first to find the diameter. So I could say to myself, okay, this is the formula I'm going to use. I'm going to write it out to make sure that I've got it all properly laid out. Circumference equals pi times diameter. In this case, what is the information that I know? Well, I don't know the diameter. That's what I'm being asked to find. But I do know the circumference is 335 centimeters. So let me plug that in to the formula I know. I know that the circumference is 335 centimeters. So now I can place that equation there. 335 is equal to pi times diameter. If I'm trying to solve for diameter, then the way that I would do that is I would divide both sides by pi. Because remember, pi is just a coefficient here. Pi is just a number, right? So that means if I divide this by pi over here, and that's going to be fine as long as I divide the other side by pi as well. Okay. So now the great thing about doing that is that these cancel out just like that. And I'm left over here with just the diameter. I have just diameter over on this side, which is what I wanted. And I've got my equal sign right in the middle where it should be, right underneath the equal sign up here. And here I just have to figure out, well, what's 335 divided by pi? So I use my calculator. What's 335 divided by pi? And I get this answer, 106.63, properly rounded. So that's my answer. The diameter is 106.63 centimeters. Got to make sure I have the right units on there. Now this is a two-part question, right? The second part of the question is saying, what is the radius of this circle? Well, there's a couple ways I could do this. I could say, all right, let me use the formula I know for the radius. Circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius. And then I do what I did before. I divide both sides by pi. I'll divide both sides by 2, blah, 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 blah. But I could just say, well, I know that the diameter is twice as big as the radius. So let me just take this diameter, and I could just say to myself, I know that whoops, let me switch the color there. The diameter is equal to 2 times the radius, like that. And then plug in the numbers that I know here. I know that the diameter is 106.63 centimeters. So I can replace the d with 106.63 and then solve for r. The way I do that, and this is probably going a long way around for something that's pretty obvious for a lot of you guys, is to just divide both sides by 2. Like this. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And what that does for me is that the two 2's over here cancel out, so I just am left with r, which is what I want. And so on this side, I have exactly what I want. I have r all along. Just plain old r. And again, right in the middle, the star of the show, where it should be, the equal sign is right here, lined up right underneath these two here. And what I need to put under here is just what this is. Now keep in mind, again, with my calculator, I kept all the decimal places that were in there before. So when I divide this by 2, my final answer isn't just going to be necessarily 106.63 divided by 2. It's what my calculator remembered, all those other decimal places, and that divided by 2, which gives me 53.32 centimeters. So let me write that in. 53.32 centimeters is my answer for the radius. And then because I like to make it obvious to Mr. Parr what my final answer is. I'm going to put a nice circle around it like that. All right, so that was part one of this little bit on circumference. It's really just using it forward, using it in word problems, and then using it backwards. And then we're going to get on in the next video to something a little bit more complicated.